My name is Marlowe Quinn. I am 72 years old, a retired seamstress who spent a lifetime stitching gowns for other women's daughters while saving every quiet dollar for my own. And on a warm Charleston afternoon, my daughter Lyndon looked me in the eye and said the words that cracked something deep inside me. The story you are about to hear is a work of fiction created by the Her Tears Channel team, based on real-life situations to convey lessons about family, emotions, and human values. All characters and events are illustrative. I gave my wedding savings to his mom, she announced. Voice bright, rehearsed. She needs it more than you. She said it like she was delivering good news, like she was expecting applause for her generosity. Like the decades I spent patching clothes at midnight after my husband Jonas died were nothing more than a footnote in a story she had outgrown. I did not shout. I did not cry. Instead, I stood up, reached into my bag, and pulled out my phone. Lyndon's smile faltered. "Mom, why are you doing that?" "Should I tell you what I did next?" I asked quietly. Her expression froze mid-smirk, mid-confidence, mid-certainty that she still understood me. I watched her shift in her chair, just slightly, as if the air around us had changed. She had no idea what I had uncovered already. No idea how long I had sensed something was wrong. No idea that this moment was not the beginning of my shock, but the end of my patience. "Marlowe, please don't start," she murmured, but her voice cracked the tiniest bit. She tried to cover it with a laugh, one of those brittle little sounds she picked up after meeting Mason's family. "You always take things so seriously." I kept my phone in my hand, not raised, not pointed, just visible enough for her to notice, visible enough for her to wonder what I knew, because this conversation, the one she thought she controlled, had been unfolding in my mind for days. And before I could explain how it started to unravel, I had to return to the moment I first realized my daughter was slipping away from me. How much of a lifetime must a mother give before it is finally considered enough? I did not always hold my breath around my daughter. There was a time when Lyndon would sit on the kitchen counter while I pinned hems, her feet swinging as she told me every detail of her day. Back then, she trusted my hands, my voice, my way of seeing the world. Everything changed long before she said those words about giving my savings away. After Jonas Quinn died, I worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat. In the mornings, I altered dresses for one of Charleston's old boutiques, the kind run by women who still judged worth by last names and lineage. In the evenings, I sewed from home, stitching gowns for girls whose families never questioned dropping $10,000 on a night they would not remember clearly. Every time a bill came due, I folded another piece of my own comfort away. Every time I was paid, I whispered the same promise: this is for Lyndon's future. One night, when she was 12, she found me asleep at the sewing machine. "Mom, why do you work so much?" she asked softly. "So you won't have to." I told her. She hugged me then, her small arms tight around my waist, as if she understood. Years passed. The savings grew slowly, bit by bit, every spare dollar tucked away. I imagined Lyndon walking down the aisle in a dress I would make with my own hands. Imagined giving her a start better than the one I had. Then she met Mason Cole. And then she met his mother. Regina Cole stepped into our lives with perfect posture and rehearsed warmth. Lyndon admired her immediately. Regina offered advice in gentle tones that carried sharp edges. She suggested that Lyndon deserved more refined guidance, that some women simply knew how to shape a wedding properly. Lyndon repeated those words to me one afternoon, unaware of the cut they carried. That was the moment. Something quiet inside me shifted. The savings I built were never just money. They were years of work, sacrifice, and hope. And hope, I was beginning to learn, was the first thing Regina took from my daughter. When does influence become manipulation? And how do you recognize it when it is already too late? I met Mason Cole on a Sunday afternoon, the kind of day Charleston families use to display their best manners. He shook my hand with a steady grip and said all the right things about loving my daughter. His mother, Regina Cole, followed behind him with a smile so polished it looked practiced. Marlowe, I have heard wonderful things, she said, taking both my hands as if we were dear friends. Lyndon is a jewel, and we are thrilled to welcome her. Her warmth felt a shade too bright, but Lyndon leaned into her side as if she had found a second home. It did not take long for Regina to weave herself into Lyndon's life. One evening, Lyndon called me, breathless with excitement. Mom, Regina got me an interview at the marketing firm downtown. Her friend is the director. That was kind of her, I said carefully. She believes in me, Lyndon replied. She said I have potential no one ever taught me to use. The words caught under my ribs. No one, I echoed. Lyndon hesitated, then brushed it off. You know what I mean. A week later, Mason stopped by while Lyndon and I were choosing fabric samples for her dress. He glanced at the swatches and laughed softly. Mom just wants the wedding to represent our level. She has a vision. She will help guide things. Lyndon nodded quickly, as if the statement settled something. I folded the samples away. From then on, our conversations changed. Lyndon's updates were filled with Regina's opinions, what colors were elegant, what venues were tasteful, what families expected from a proper Charleston wedding. One afternoon, while waiting outside the Coles' home, I overheard Regina speaking through the cracked window. We cannot keep covering these bills, she whispered sharply. I need that money secured soon. Lyndon stepped outside a moment later. Unaware of what I had just heard, she kissed my cheek and said, Regina thinks we should streamline decisions from now on. Slowly, quietly, I began to understand exactly whose family my daughter thought she belonged to. What do you do when the person you love most begins to speak with someone else's voice? After Lyndon told me she had given the wedding savings to Regina, I asked her to sit with me at the kitchen table. I needed to understand how we had reached that moment. She crossed her arms and glanced toward the door, already impatient. Lyndon, I began carefully. Why would you hand that money over without talking to me first? Her tone came fast. Clipped. Regina understands weddings. You would not get it. The words stung more because she believed them. I have made gowns for nearly 50 years, I reminded her. I know a few things about weddings. That is different, she snapped. You sew dresses. Regina plans events. She knows what things should look like at a certain level. There it was again, level. Regina's favorite word. I steadied my breath. Your future should not depend on pleasing someone else's mother. Lyndon let out a frustrated sigh. Regina said you might react like this. She told me you get too emotional to handle finances. She said it was not your fault, that you grew up differently. My hands tightened in my lap. Emotional, I repeated softly. She meant well. Lyndon insisted. She is just trying to help. Help with what I asked. Taking the money I worked for, Lyndon pushed back her chair. There you go again, making everything a sacrifice, Regina said. What else did Regina say? I interrupted. Not loud, but firm. She froze, eyes narrowing. Why are you interrogating me? I am trying to reach you, I said. That is all. She stood abruptly. You are outdated, Mom. You do not understand how things work anymore. Those words cut deeper than any insult she had ever thrown at me. They did not sound like my daughter. They sounded rehearsed, borrowed. She walked out before I could answer. The silence she left behind was heavy and sharp. And for the first time, I felt the shape of the trap tightening around her. What if the truth you feared turns out to be far worse than you imagined? I was folding linens when my phone rang. The name on the screen made me pause. Elias Moran. I had not heard his voice in months, but he used to handle small financial matters for Jonas and me. He never called without reason. Marlowe, he said, skipping any greeting. I need to ask you something. Did you recently authorize any financial documents involving Lyndon? No. I answered immediately. Why? He exhaled slowly. Then you need to hear this. I sat down. Tell me. It is about Regina Cole. He said, her debts are substantial. More than substantial. She is entangled in loans she cannot repay, and it looks like the wedding is being used to secure credibility with lenders. My grip tightened on the phone. How does this involve Lyndon? That is the part that concerns me most. Papers rustled on his end. Regina submitted a request for a line of credit last week. Lyndon's name appears in the notes as an informal guarantor, nothing binding yet, but it shows intent. I felt my stomach twist. She is trying to tie my daughter into her loans. Yes, Elias said softly. If approved, Lyndon could end up responsible for tens of thousands. A wave of heat passed through me. She would never agree to that. She may not understand what she is agreeing to, he replied. The language is vague. It is designed that way. I closed my eyes, hearing Lyndon's voice calling me outdated, emotional, irrelevant. None of that had come from her, not truly, Elias, I said quietly. Thank you for telling me. I can help you protect what is left, he offered. But you need to move quickly. I will, I promised. When the call ended, the house felt colder. I was not simply fighting for savings anymore. Regina was positioning my daughter as her lifeline, pulling her into a scheme Lyndon had no tools to understand. I stood, collected myself, and began planning my next step without telling a soul. How do you save someone who is determined to walk into a trap? The morning after Elias called, I went to the credit union and withdrew every remaining dollar from the wedding account. The teller asked if I wanted to leave a small balance. I shook my head, all of it. I said, my voice did not tremble. By afternoon, Elias and I were seated at his office desk as he explained the paperwork. This trust protects the funds, he said. Lyndon can only access it after she is married or after she formally separates from Mason. It keeps Regina out completely. I signed each page slowly, feeling something settle inside me. Not relief, resolve. When I arrived home, I noticed Lyndon had left her laptop on the counter. The screen glowed with unread emails. One of them marked urgent from Regina. I should have walked away. I should have respected the boundary. But my daughter was being pulled into something she did not understand. I clicked. Regina's message was short and sharp. Mason, remind Lyndon that loyalty is proven through choices. Guide her. She must show our family comes first now. My hand tightened around the edge of the counter. This was not concern or mentorship. This was direction calculated, deliberate. A moment later, Lyndon walked in. Did you need something? Mom. I closed the laptop slowly. We will talk soon, I said. She frowned. Why are you looking at me like that? Because I am beginning to see what is happening, I replied. And I will not let it continue. She rolled her eyes. You are overreacting again. Not this time. I stepped past her and reached for my coat. There will be a conversation, I said quietly, and it will not be one Regina controls. Lyndon's confusion followed me out the door. I knew then that whatever came next would crack everything open. I also knew I was ready for it. What happens when the people who believed they had you cornered finally realize you picked the room? The message came from Lyndon, Mom. We need to talk. All of us. Tonight. Her tone held a stiffness that told me exactly where we would be, Regina's house. When I arrived, every face was already arranged around the dining table. Regina sat at the head, hands folded. Mason stood behind her, jaw tight. His parents. Everett and Caroline Cole watched me with unreadable expressions. Lyndon motioned to an empty seat. Marlowe, Regina began smoothly. We are concerned. The wedding is at risk. Funds have disappeared. Mason leaned forward. You withdrew everything. You sabotaged the planning. Lyndon's voice followed, smaller than theirs. Mom, why would you do that? I set my purse on the table. I protected what did not belong to any of you. Regina let out a soft laugh. This is childish. Lyndon trusted you. Our families depend on these arrangements. Arrangements, I repeated. You mean the loan applications, the debts, the credit extensions tied to my daughter's name. The room went still. Regina's smile twitched. Mason stepped in. Do not make accusations. I slid the folder from my purse and placed it on the table. These emails suggest otherwise. This one, I said, tapping the top page, shows Regina approaching a lender using Lyndon as an informal guarantor. And these are the statements Elias found. The debts are large. Lyndon's breath hitched. What, Regina? You told me everything was stable. Regina stiffened. Lyndon, do not let her twist things. I was handling matters the way families like ours must. Before she could continue, Everett Cole cleared his throat. Regina, stop. His gaze hardened. Investors contacted me weeks ago. They warned me your spending was out of control. Mason turned to her, stunned. You told me Dad was exaggerating. I did what I had to do. Regina snapped. Lyndon looked from face to face, color draining from her cheeks. You were using me, she whispered. The crack formed right then sharp, undeniable. Their engagement, their plans, their perfect future, all of it shifted under the weight of truth. I said nothing more. I did not need to. The room, finally, was speaking for me. How do you rebuild trust with someone who did not realize they were losing themselves? After the meeting collapsed into silence, Lyndon stood up so quickly her chair scraped against the floor. She faced Regina first, her hands shaking. You lied to me, she said. All this time, you made it sound like the wedding needed help, not that you were drowning in debt. Regina rose, voice coated with urgency. Lyndon, families make sacrifices. This is how old Charleston works. No. Lyndon shot back. This is how you work. Mason stepped closer, reaching for her arm. Lyndon, calm down. Mom was under pressure. You know how these things. She pulled away sharply. Stop speaking for her. You knew, too. You kept telling me to listen to her, to trust her. I ignored so many signs because I wanted this to work. Mason's jaw clenched. You are overreacting. Lyndon's voice broke. I am ending this. I cannot marry into a family that sees me as leverage. Regina exhaled as if insulted. You will regret this decision. I already regret plenty, Lyndon whispered. She turned to me then. For the first time in months, she really looked at me. Not past me. Not through me at me. Mom, she began, her voice trembling. I am sorry. I did not see what was happening. I thought Regina cared about me. She made me feel chosen. I stepped closer. Being chosen is not the same as being valued. Lyndon wiped her eyes. She told me something I did not want to repeat. But you deserve to hear it. She said, your mother had her time. Your loyalty belongs to this family now. The words hit deeper than I expected. I felt the cold precision of Regina's manipulations settle into place. She had cut at every bond she could find, carving space for herself where I once stood. Lyndon reached for my hand. I should have questioned more. I should have listened. I closed my fingers around hers. It was not forgiveness. Not yet. But it was the first step either of us had taken in a long time. Together, We walked out of the Coles home and left the weight of their expectations behind us. After betrayal and truth collided, what pieces were worth saving? Lyndon moved back into my house the next morning with 2 suitcases and a silence I did not question. She stood in the doorway of her old room, touching the dresser she used as a girl. "I need time," she said quietly. "You can have all you need," I replied. She started therapy a week later. I waited in the car during her first session, hands folded in my lap when she returned. Her eyes were swollen, but her voice sounded steadier. "I am taking responsibility." She told me, "Regina did not create all of my choices. I let myself believe I needed her approval. That kind of belief takes root slowly." I said, "Pulling it out will take time, too." Word spread through Charleston faster than either of us expected. Neighbors lingered a little too long when passing by. Some whispered sympathy, others shared headlines. By the end of the month, the Coles troubles became public. One afternoon, Lyndon stepped into the kitchen holding her phone. "Mom, look." A local news bulletin displayed Regina's name beside a statement from the board of a historic preservation society. She had been removed from her treasurer role following an internal audit. The report mentioned irregularities, mismanaged funds, and an anonymous packet of evidence. Lyndon looked at me, eyes narrowing with understanding. "You sent it." "I sent what needed to be seen," I answered. She nodded, slow but certain. "Thank you." We spent evenings talking about things we had avoided for years, her loneliness after Jonas died, my fear of failing her, the pressure she felt to fit into a world that kept moving the finish line. Healing did not arrive with a single moment. It came in small exchanges, careful steps, and the quiet realization that we were finding each other again. We carried on, building something steadier from what remained. What if the most powerful revenge is not destruction, but exposure? Nearly 6 months passed before Lyndon told me she wanted a new wedding small, honest, and free from anyone who expected her to kneel to their vision. Her partner, Evan Calder, a quiet software analyst with kind eyes, asked if I would walk her down the aisle. "Only if you want me to," I said. Lyndon shook her head, tears forming. "I want you there for every step." The ceremony took place in the garden behind a friend's cafe. No chandeliers, no staged photographs, just voices, vows, and people who loved her for who she was, not who she impressed. As we walked toward Evan, Lyndon whispered, "I never understood how heavy someone else's expectations can feel until I learned to put them down." "You learned," I murmured. "That is what matters." Halfway through the reception, I heard Regina's name for the first time in months. A neighbor approached with a phone in her hand. "Marlowe, have you seen this?" she whispered. Headlines rolled across the screen. Mismanaged funds, undisclosed debts, abuse of treasurer authority. The ethics board's full findings had been released. Every detail, every loan, every manipulation was in permanent ink. Social circles Regina once dominated were already unraveling. Her invitations revoked, her influence dissolved. Regina responded by blaming me in a statement to a local columnist, calling me vindictive and unstable, but the evidence overshadowed every word she tried to fling. Later that week, Mason issued a quiet announcement distancing himself from her for professional reasons. The statement read, "He never mentioned Lyndon or me." During the reception, Lyndon lifted her glass. "My mother did not save money for a wedding," she said, voice steady. "She saved my future, and she saved me." The guests applauded. Evan pulled her close. I felt something unclench inside me. Something that had tightened the night Lyndon gave her savings away. Life lesson or not, I understood something clearer that day. I did not need to ruin Regina. I only needed to stop hiding the truth. The truth did the rest cleanly, thoroughly, without my anger having to scorch a single corner. As the evening faded, I looked at my daughter's new beginning and thought about the road we had walked to reach it. In the end, what matters more, winning the battle, or finally choosing the life that cannot be taken from you? If this story resonated with you, remember to like, comment, or subscribe for more.